Welcome back to Legal Threads, the podcast where we untangle the knots of civil procedure and tort law to see how the law really works in practice. I'm your host, Chat, and today we're talking about removal, the process that lets defendants take a case filed in state court and move it into federal court. Here's the basic idea. Plaintiffs usually get the first choice of forum. If a case could have been filed in either state or federal court, the plaintiff may pick state court. But Congress has given defendants a trump card. Under 28 U.S.C. Section 1441, if the case could have been filed in federal court in the first place, the defendant can remove it from state to federal court. So what does it take for a case to be removable? There has to be subject matter jurisdiction in federal court. That means either federal question jurisdiction, where the plaintiff's claim arises under federal law, or diversity jurisdiction, where the parties are citizens of different states and the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000. Let's look at a few examples. If a Florida plaintiff sues a Florida defendant for defamation and the defendant raises a First Amendment defense, that case is not removable. The defense doesn't create federal question jurisdiction. On the other hand, if the plaintiff sues in state court alleging a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution, that's removable, because the claim itself arises under federal law. If a Florida plaintiff sues a New Jersey defendant for $100,000 in Florida state court, that's also removable, complete diversity and enough in controversy. But if the same New Jersey defendant is sued in New Jersey state court, removal is barred by the home state defendant rule. You can't remove on diversity grounds if you've been sued in your own state. Now, how do you actually remove? That's where Section 1446 comes in. The defendant files a notice of removal in federal court within 30 days of receiving the complaint. The notice must state the grounds for jurisdiction and include copies of the state court filings. The plaintiff can challenge removal by filing a motion to remand under Section 1447. Federal courts strictly enforce these deadlines. Even 1 day late can send the case back to state court. Timing is especially important in diversity cases. There's a 1-year limit on removal, unless the plaintiff acted in bad faith to block removal. For example, if a plaintiff sues a diverse defendant and also sues a local defendant they never really intend to pursue, just to keep the case in state court, a federal judge may find bad faith and allow removal after the 1-year mark. Another wrinkle is the amount in controversy. If the complaint seeks less than $75,000, the defendant usually can't remove just by saying the damages might be higher. But if discovery later reveals the case is really worth more, removal may become available within 30 days of that new information. Courts measure the amount at the time of removal, not after the fact. So if the plaintiff tries to stipulate later that they'll seek less than $75,000, that doesn't defeat jurisdiction once the case is already properly removed. Finally, remember that federal question removal can sweep in related state law claims. If the state claims are part of the same case or controversy, the federal court can hear them through supplemental jurisdiction. But if they're unrelated, say, a federal employment discrimination claim plus a totally separate state contract dispute, the federal court must sever and remand the state claims while keeping the federal ones. So what's the big picture here? Removal is a strategic tool. Plaintiffs often prefer state court. Defendants often prefer federal. The statutes create a careful balance, giving plaintiffs the first move but giving defendants a way out if the case truly belongs in federal court. And the strict timing rules make sure those moves happen quickly, without dragging cases through years of jurisdictional limbo. That's removal, a deceptively simple mechanism that shapes where lawsuits get heard and how they play out. Thanks for listening to this episode of Legal Threads. I'm Chat, and I'll see you next time, when we pull another thread from the fabric of American law.